Hello, welcome to our meetup. This is run officially by Diana, and I am here to help. And this is going to be more of a dev talk than dev/workshop than it normally is. And we've got a bunch of USB thumb drives, which everyone uses often, right? And we're going to get MAMP or WAMP installed on your computers so you guys can start working locally, and then we're going to start building themes. So do you have any kind of questions you want to ask?
Well, first of all, it's nice to see new faces. See some people here we haven't had before.
Introduce yourselves.
Oh, I'm Diana Nichols, web developer, and the real reason Aaron's here is because he knows a lot more than I do about dev. So I kind of get things started, and then he knows the real stuff.
So I'm Aaron Ryman, web developer, and for a company called Sideways 8, and we build custom themes. We don't do much template stuff, but every once in a while we do that for clients, help them pick out a theme and whatnot, but the majority of what we do is custom. So we're gonna...
That's the one thing that Aaron and I have in common. He's a Mac person, I'm a Windows person. He works with teams, I work alone. So we bring those different perspectives, but we both do mostly custom stuff. We don't do a lot of just taking things and customizing and changing settings. We build things. So that's kind of where we share our expertise. Passion. Oh, that's a good word.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so first of all, how many of you have a local development environment on your laptops right now? Awesome.
What are you guys using? MAMP? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Who needs that set up or installed?
Who wants that set up today?
One.
Okay.
Awesome. That's gonna save us a whole lot of time.
Everything you
So.
need is on here.
Hey Nikki,
Download it.
do you mind helping if she gets stuck? I don't know your skill set, so figured I'd offer Mickey there. So
There's both WAMP and MAMP on there, and also WordPress and Notepad++. How many of you use an IDE or an editor for coding? Okay. Anybody want to add that to your repertoire today?
yeah, who doesn't have a text editor that does color coding? Okay, everyone's good. Cool.
Notepad++ is on there. And you can use, it's not the best one, it's not the only one by any means, but it's the easiest to get up and running. It's very simple. It's basically like Notepad, but color coded. It has some cool features, but when you get serious, you may want to upgrade to PHP Storm or Sublime or something like that. But that's a good place to start. And you'll be surprised at how much easier it is to write code when you have it color coded. When the program is telling you what you're looking at. What do you want to do now?
Does everyone that has a local dev, you guys have a WordPress install active? So if we say create a folder in your themes directory, you guys can do that?
I don't have it locally, I just have it with the server thing. So I don't have it locally.
You don't have WordPress installed locally?
Not locally, no.
Okay. You want to install it locally? Okay. WordPress is on there. we knew we wouldn't be able to Wi-Fi here.
Hey guys, just so you know, this is a workshop environment, so the video is going to be a little bit different this time.
Why don't you go? Why don't you plug in and let me just read off that?
I was going to use this as a... Okay, I'll set up
Or you can use this if you want.
I'll feel weird using your,
I know, you don't like those.
yeah.
All right,
So
we're
what
gonna let
is
everybody
this
watch
with
the
RGB?
screen for when they get started, and you can follow along. That's exciting.
I did not bring my,
If you're on a Mac, is Notepad+ available on the disk as well?
Nope,
nope, my,
is Notepad?
one of my
not-
USB drives has,
Thanks,
Adam,
it is a good subject, but it is a workshop, so
ATOM,
it's gonna be a
as a,
little different
text
watching it
editor.
from, Periscope versus being here live.
Hey Mickey, you got an adapter for me? I wasn't planning on using my laptop.
Probably not.
You did before?
What is it? Is it
What do
just
you
mic
mean,
or HDMI?
Oh, I can do HDMI. Okay,
There you go.
that might work. I forgot I have a.
Guys, if you need to rewatch this, we will save this video and we'll put it up on YouTube, and then we'll link it to the All Things WordPress meetup group, and also on the allthingswordpress.com website, so that you can review it and rewatch it after you've done your own local installs if
So
necessary.
where you should be is in your local dev environment, in a WordPress install, doesn't have to be clean, but clean is good. And I want you to create a new folder for a new theme inside your themes directory. Does everybody understand that, or how to do that?
That's not readable, is it?
And at this point, let me also say that if you don't have a local dev environment, if you don't want one, or for whatever reason, you can also do the same thing, the same types of things in staging sites. You can get a free one from Pantheon, a free one from WP Engine, or a very inexpensive one from SiteGround. And there you can play around with whatever. You don't ever want to, of course, do this type of work on a live site or a production server, but all three of those, and I'm sure others as well, offer staging sites, and that's what they're for. They're for doing your development when you're liable to cause errors.
Okay, so I've got MAMP installed and I'm just setting up WordPress, and I will do my best to explain what I'm doing.
Hey, Aaron, if
Yes.
you were watching this online and did not have access to your preset thumb drive, where would you get MAMP from?
Let me Google that for you. I really don't know.
Ma'am?
I think it's mampserver.com, but I'm not 100% sure. Mamp.info.
Okay, there you go. Thank
And
you.
I've only used MAMP on a Mac. They have MAMP for Windows, but if you don't want to use that, you can use WAMP, and it stands for Windows, Apache, MySQL, PHP.
Thank you.
And I've got the paid version, $60 yearly maybe. So I can do some. I'm not going to talk about it. Anyway, I was not prepped here, so I'm trying to clean up some things. Okay, so I'm going to grab WordPress, kind of the way I normally do it. I'm going to tell MAMP to use, I don't remember what my directory was. Oh yeah, theme from scratch, and choosing that. So I'm setting up a local dev called themefromscratch.dev, and so when I hit save, it's going to restart MAMP, but it's going to let my computer know that themefromscratch.dev is a website and it's local. So when I open a browser like Chrome and go to themefromscratch.dev, it should Okay, it's hitting the server, which is excellent. It's just WordPress is not installed. So I am gonna uncompress WordPress. So now in this directory you'll see what you would expect with WordPress. You've got your admin, content, and includes. So now when I refresh, since there's an index.php file which Apache will look for, I hit refresh, and you guys should be familiar with that in some way, form, or fashion. So we hit continue. It checks to make sure that some things exist, and now I need to create a MySQL database. So I will go into MAMP. If anybody has any questions, interrupt me, because I do this all the time, so it's kind of second nature for me. As you can tell, I've got a couple local environments here. So I go to databases. I create one called the domain that I'm working on, so themefromscratch.dev, and I hit create, and now we have a database without any information in it. So we go back to WordPress here and we tell it what's the name of the database, username is root, password is root because that's default for MAMP, and hit submit. I don't know how that happened. Let's close that. All right, it checks and says, hey look, it connected to the database, and so now we can run the install. We call it this. I put a stupid password in there because it's local, it doesn't really matter. So username, admin, password, admin. Log in. Alright, so now I've got a local copy. It's going to default to 2016, I would assume. Yay. So how many of you guys are at that point with your theme? Can you guys have WordPress installed?
I haven't yet.
You haven't yet? Do you need help doing it, or do you want to just follow?
I'll just follow right now.
Okay, alright.
Any questions so far? That's the very basics.
I think that most people wouldn't install WordPress the way that you did through the terminal. I think most people would unpack and just drag the files into.
Right.
Probably.
You're probably right.
That's the way I would do
Because I
it.
know what I was doing and I didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah, I've just
Right.
well, I've got so if I go to terminal and I go in my temp directory or whatever, which doesn't. Oh, there we go.
I mean, I downloaded a copy of WordPress, unpacked it, and kept it in place. And then when I create a new site in MAMP, I find the directory that I created for my
Right.
site and I copy the files in.
Right. Yeah, I just do.
And that's fine.
I do this. I run a little thing that downloads it, uncompresses it, puts it in the right place, and stuff like that. It's just because I do this all the time.
Right.
So it makes sense for me to have just a little script that knows how to. Actually, it's not even a script. It's just a slew of command line things to do it.
Finished uncompressing WordPress.
So it said what did it say?
Finished
uncompressing
uncompressing, yeah.
WordPress.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you can do it manually, or you can do it command line. Same goal.
Apologize for being a little late.
No
Are
problem.
you installing it to work on work locally on
Yes.
your computer?
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, we started off saying use WAMP or MAMP to set up a local
Yeah,
dev.
I got you.
Are you working locally?
I will be working locally. I use that was called WP, Instant WP.
Okay. Never heard of what is it?
Is that a
Instant
server?
WP?
Instant WP works kind of like WAMP, but you just install it and it's ready to go.
Okay. That's cool.
So
Yeah,
it's
there's,
the same concept, right?
Okay.
yeah,
You work locally and practice and get your
Right.
website built first and then upload it.
yeah,
Okay.
exact same concept.
Alright.
So, yeah, I feel like when you're theming or developing,
Mhm.
having to upload a file, make a change, upload a file, you do that, every 60 seconds to test stuff. It winds up becoming, do that for a day and then 5 days and then 50, weeks. It just adds up. So local dev makes sense, and it allows you to do a lot more debugging and whatnot also. So, all right, we've got WordPress, and we're gonna build a theme. So
Yep.
I am.
You ready? Okay. Does anybody know what you need to create a theme? What the minimum requirement is for a theme?
Style sheet, the style sheet. You're supposed to have the style
Yes,
sheet, you're supposed to have the functions, PHP, but it will run without.
No, you need 2 files for a theme. Style.css is one, what's the second one?
Index.php.
Thank you. Functions is the third, but it's not required. You must have the 2 files. The style sheet, and it must have the name of the theme in the header. It has a predefined header that you must have. Which basically just has to say the theme name and then the name of the theme. And then you have to have index.php.
Sorry, I'm using PHP Storm here to set up my environment. So basically what I've pulled in here is the whole directory that contains WordPress, themes, and everything. So we're gonna go and create a directory. Call it theme from scratch. I probably should put dashes in that, but I'm not going to. And we're going to create 2 files. And I'm probably going to get you to kind of tell me what to do. Because I'll do my best to multitask here. So,
Style.css.
I'm no Micah Wood. I can't, write incredible code and talk at the same time. So,
Sure you can, sure you can.
all right. So, I guess I don't need to put the extension. So, style.css
Yep.
and
And you just need to have the comment. Style.css has to have the,
you know what I'm gonna do?
what?
Cheat and show people how to cheat
Okay,
in
well,
WordPress.
that's what I was doing, I was looking it up.
Yeah.
Because 90% of this is copying, pasting.
Is it in here? It is.
Yes, there you are.
Look at this magic.
All you really need though is the first line.
Okay, can we, now I'm getting to where I would like to just do what he did. So,
Okay.
you went to WordPress,
.org.
yep, and I was trying to look at the.
Okay, sorry.
URL.
So I'll go back.
URL.
Basically, I googled WordPress create style CSS, and someone was saying, I forget, some core committer in Orlando a couple of years ago said, don't Google, the stuff. Go into WordPress.org and search. I don't know why.
Either way
but
works.
nonetheless, I do
Either way
this. So create styled CSS. It pulled up basically the theme development page. So codex.wordpress.org/theme_development, and it walks you through how to do all of these things anyway. But I was just looking. I knew what I was looking for in here. So we're just building, basically naming the theme right now.
Okay.
So now I'm actually gonna kill those things. So now we go into WordPress, because we've created that. And what I can do is put this on GitHub or something later, so you guys can pull down what I've done if you want. If you can't follow, and we can also pause. I don't mind. I've got until 1 o'clock. So, and this is gonna go on for a few more months, I think. So now we go to appearance. Now we've got a very horrible screenshot here. Does anybody know how to get a pretty picture here? So, I'll take that as a no. If you, when I do something like a PSD of a site, when I'm building a theme for a client, I do a nice screenshot of the theme. And
It's 12 o'clock.
and why isn't that pasting? Alright, my Photoshop skills aren't if you guys are gonna release a theme, this is super important. There's a lot of things that need to be done for a theme to be acceptable. So when you submit it to the WordPress repository, you have to make sure that you have a style. Well, you have to have a style sheet, but you have a screenshot.png, or they won't accept it. There's a whole lot of things that need to be done. So I'm just going to save this, save as, go into the theme.
The name of the file is important. Whatever it contains, it has to be called screenshot.png.
I wasn't planning on going into this, but it just
Yeah,
kind of
I know.
hit me.
If you also work with clients, like I do, I have a screenshot that's basically an advertisement for me. It says, this theme was created by Diana Nichols.
I normally make sure it's the exact right size. It's supposed to be
Right.
880 by 660. So WordPress was smart, and it wasn't actually planning on doing an advertisement or whatever there. But anyway, so there's the screenshot. So in the
Is there a particular size that you use?
Yes.
yeah,
There's an optimized size. You can either look at the screenshot in one of the, I would just look at, the one in 2016. But it also tells you on the website what it is.
yeah. So on that same page,
So there you go.
yeah.
880 by 660.
Yeah. So right there. So everything I'm telling you is basically on this one page, but I'm a visual guy, so. All right, so now we have a theme that has 0 functionality. So let's go and look. Have we selected? All right, we're activating my theme. And we go and look at the website.
Ta-da! Plain vanilla.
Yeah. So what's wrong? It looks like an error page because it's not displaying errors, right? No, it's just we're not telling it to do anything. So someone tell me what to do. Not you. Sorry.
So many possibilities.
Yeah. So if you want something to start showing up, I mean, what should be in this index.php file? Anybody know? I'm going to lean on Mickey in a second.
Go get my stuff.
All right. So we got to tell it to do something. Whoops. So this is prime example why I like to use what's my editor? PHP Storm. Because I can now do this. It fills it in for me. So get header. If we need a header, we also need a,
Footer.
thank you, footer.
Mhm.
And then we need something in the middle. But let's go
Just
see
type-
what
this is
happens
a-
here.
Just type something in there.
Okay.
So we can tell it's working. All right,
That's impressive.
magic.
What is it calling in?
There's a default header and footer. I didn't know that till recently either. There's a default header and footer actually hard-coded into the core.
When did that happen?
I don't know.
Okay,
I
so
found
if it
it out
doesn't
by
find, normally I was expecting errors.
Right,
Um,
no, there's a default.
Okay, so it's doing something. That's impressive. So, but we want to have our own look and feel, right? And we need to extend this. So, get header is looking for, anybody know the file name? Because everybody edits those, right? So, it's a new file. PHP Storm so smart. So now we go over here. Now it looks like we did a lot. Now it's a lot worse, but we're gonna address that. So if we need a header.php, we need a
Bless you.
footer.php. So you guys hear the sirens? Does it make you nervous?
They rescheduled
Tornado.
They're scheduled. I didn't realize that. I lived at my
But
house.
Usually they're at 12, though.
Usually it's Wednesday. Is there something we should know about?
Is it normally Wednesday?
Pretty sure it is.
Okay, all I know is I remember I was working,
Wednesday.
writing code, and then all of a sudden I heard it, and I ran to my wife. I'm like, "What's going on?" She's like, "This happens and I'm like, "Are you serious?" I guess I'm zoned out all the time, and I was just paying attention to the sirens that day. So, anyway, footer.php, and the people that are listening to this or watching this have no idea what I'm talking about, but we hear sirens. Okay, so this is what I was expecting, is something more like this without a header and footer, but I guess at some point in, I'm just echoing out the file name,
Okay.
so make it better,
I'm not sure why you're doing that, but
just so I can see. Come on. There we go. Now she's leaving me right when I need her. So, all right, I'm gonna go and cheat and look at my
Sorry, guys. I
GitHub repository here.
all right.
I've got
Pardon me playing
kind of
with
what
this.
I
I'm gonna
built
try and get
about a year
higher
ago. I
on
did
the
the same
screen.
explanation.
There we go.
So, I'm gonna snag some of this stuff. Do you have anything you want to say? I mean, as far as like where you want to go with the building the theme?
no. I mean, there's some basic things that if you're dealing with WordPress, you need to have, or it's, doesn't make much sense. Like you're gonna have your loop, which shows the pages or posts. There's certain things that you need to have in the header that pertain to SEO or that make the theme responsive. But from the basic standpoint, we have a theme. Now it's just a matter of what are we going to make it do.
I'm gonna pull up what I'm doing here.
Boy, that siren's persistent.
That's a little distracting.
I think that's actually a vacuum.
Oh, that vacuum cleaner's persistent. I wish you'd go to my house.
Vacuum stuff. Sorry.
Maybe not. I don't know.
That sounds like a siren to me.
Yeah.
So, alright.
This is slightly off
But where is it pulling the get header function from? Is that from the main function?
Get header is a core function.
So it's from the main.
And what it tells it to do is go and find a file called header.php and do what it says.
Okay,
That's
see,
what
I
it
was just
also
wondering.
does some, well, no, no, that's pretty much all get header does as far as I know.
So-
It goes and gets the file.
You can hit, using PHP Storm, hit Command B. This is one thing that's kind of cool. It jumps directly into WordPress core, and it gives me an example. Or not example, it actually shows me what that function does. And I know by default, I mean, I can look and say, oh, I can do get header and call in a specific file name right there too. So if there's a different header for the home page, I can be cool and do something like get header and WordPress will look for a file called, if I'm right on that.
Right.
So it'll start looking for that. So it's one way to customize things for the client or for your own blog.
And stop us if we go too much down the rabbit hole, because there's so much to this, and we want to keep
Right.
it so everybody can follow along and really understand what's going on. We want you to learn that the purpose of this is, even if you don't want to build your own framework or your own theme, is to learn enough ins and outs about themes that it makes it easier for you to understand them, to be able to read them, to be able to change them or modify them any way you want. But there's some big rabbit holes here that we could just easily fall into and lose you, so.
So I'm going to build a extremely basic head here, and PHP Storm is completing some things for me, which is cool and sometimes annoying. So we know that our body and our HTML closing tag shouldn't be in header, so I'm going to just copy that, put that over there in the end of footer. And give this a title, which I think I know what the function is for this, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't have it in there.
The title?
Is it just the title?
I think it is.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So does that make sorry. Does that make sense to you guys, what this is? The get title? Is that readable? Yeah, that's readable.
The title is a function in WordPress that goes and pulls the title of whatever page you're on. So that will be dynamic, that will change on every page of your site. And that's what you want. You never want to write the title of your, the name of your blog or your website there. You want that to be different on every page for SEO purposes, right? Nod your head, yes.
So would that be
Not sure.
considered
Yes.
an H1 tag, or we're not there yet?
We're not there yet.
We're not outputting anything.
Okay,
We're not outputting anything to the browser. This is for search engines
okay, all right.
so far.
It is kind of for the browser,
Well,
just for one
Right,
little thing. So
You're
now it will says hello world right there. You guys see it in the top right? So what it's doing is it's grabbing the default page, which is hello world page. So I'm going to go over there actually, and
So it is consistent across all pages, but it's not. Is that what you're kind of trying to
It's
say?
going to change
It's
depending on what
dynamic.
page you're on.
What page you're on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
so
I
we
get it, I get
change
it, I get
we
it.
change hello world to
And you're right, the browser will read it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
and hit
Okay.
update.
Right, but it's not going to output
But
to
it's-
the
Right.
page.
But it's made for the spiders to read. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So
Now, go back to the header.php. There's one thing in WordPress sites there's really only one thing that must be in the head section, must be in the header, and it should really be, it has to be inside the head tags, and it should be the last thing in there. Does anybody know what that
Always
is?
the last thing. I was
There's
dealing
one
with a
thing.
site yesterday where they had this tag that she's talking about, then right below it loaded externally a version of jQuery and then some other script stuff that could break the site.
So it's your CSS?
No. It's a PHP function. And I'm totally.
WP underscore.
Does
You
anybody?
don't have to know what this does. I don't know precisely what it does, but it calls a bunch of things that WordPress needs to function correctly. Settings and thus and such that your site needs. This has to be a part of your header inside the head tags, and it should be the last thing there. It's used by plugins.
It's used by everything.
It's used by everything.
What it does is to simplify it, it's going to go and look at your functions.php and it's going to load whatever CSS you're supposed to be calling in, whatever JavaScript you need, whatever the plugins are run through, and the plugins say, hey, I need jQuery, I need the theme, the jQuery theme stuff, and it'll spit out, on a average site probably 20 lines of code depending on how many plugins or how many CSS files and all that stuff you have in there. So that's critical, and in fact, I'm going to show you the difference between with and without. Let's see if it does anything. So commenting out WP head, I'm going to go here, and I'm going to view the source. So right now, this is not doing WP head. And this is a great way this is why we're doing it. You can learn what this function does. So right now that I'm calling in WP head, I hit refresh. Okay, so how many lines did I say? I said 20? I was wrong. Oh, that's because I'm logged in. So it's calling in, it's doing all the stuff for example, perfect. I'm logged in, but you couldn't tell because WP head isn't running. I hit refresh now, and I'm wrong.
It's not showing. Why is it not showing your admin bar?
Oh no, doing something wrong. Nonetheless, you got to have that in there because it's going to call in all the stuff needed by plugins and the theme. So.
And if you're doing your style sheet correctly, it won't load without WP head.
Right. And I'm going to go ahead, because WP head exists, I'm going to go over here to, if we need a WP head, we probably need a WP new one.
Well, you would think it would be foot, but it's actually footer.
Yeah.
Who knew? Two different
I'm not
developers.
sure why. But let's comment that out. We'll see what it looks like. So right now, that's what it looks like without it. I'm going to go over here, put that in. That's the admin bar. There we go.
There you go.
Okay.
That's
So
fine.
now we refresh and so following me? Questions, anybody?
WP head, WP footer are things you don't have to worry about, except you have to include them.
Have to include them or things aren't going to work.
The way you
And
want them to.
Sidebar too.
I'm sorry?
Sidebar.
Nope. Sidebar's not required.
No,
Sidebar.
not required, yeah, but if you.
Well, sidebar is dependent on your theme. A lot of themes don't have sidebars.
so what do you want to do? You want to get Foundation in there or Bootstrap?
Why don't we show them how to properly do style and scripts?
Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to look at what I did here.
The
to do
old
it right.
way of calling your style sheet was to do a link in the header. Everybody knows what I'm talking about? You link to your style sheet and that tells it to load it up. Or if you wanted to use a JavaScript, you would link to it in your header. That's not a best practice anymore. It's not recommended. All that stuff should be in queued, and that should go in your functions file. The reasons for that, I'm not sure of all the technical reasons, but it has to do with.
Tell you why.
Go.
Because WordPress is, I've probably said it 3 times already, WordPress is really smart. And so if you enqueue your style sheet correctly, you won't enqueue things twice, because there might be a plugin that needs the same CSS, or more specifically enqueuing JavaScript correctly. WordPress looks and says, hey, in functions.php you need jQuery, and oh look, the plugin and this plugin need jQuery too, so let's not load it 3 times, let's load it once. So I've seen people putting the jQuery in, doing it correctly in functions.php, and it just saves load time basically. So let's look at.
It also lets you put things in the order you want them to load.
Right.
Your style sheets and such.
So everybody messes with this file, right? Functions.php, which isn't required to do a WordPress theme, but you probably won't see a theme without it.
Never seen one without it.
Except for this one, which does nothing. So let's. Sorry. Why don't you stand right there? So.
Okay, I'll hold it so it doesn't
I can never remember all of these things. So we want to add action. In queue. I could do that. Theme from scratch. And I'll explain that in a minute. So we're adding an action, and what this is doing, it's going to look at, this is telling it where to show up. How do I explain the action? Do you guys understand actions?
Do something.
How many of you guys
Good point.
know or understand actions? WordPress actions? Got a couple. Okay. What this is doing, this is telling, so WordPress has a system of way things are loaded, okay? And by doing this, we're telling it, hey, when this action is called in, when the WP and Q script is being called, also run this for me. And it's going to look for this, a function. Yeah, I know. It's hard to. Did I start typing that?
Freudian type, yeah.
Did I really start typing that?
Yeah.
I was kind of mad earlier, so actually I'm going to copy and paste this because I can do that. So we're putting, and we're telling it, so now we have a function. Without this function, right now it's doing nothing, but without it, you won't see anything. So we're going to go in and we're going to enqueue a style sheet. WP in, and enqueue is nearly impossible to type.
Strangely enough, that's one of the ones I can spell. The other things I can't.
WordPress by default enqueues style.css. We don't have to worry about that. But
The only time I do it is when I'm using a child theme.
That
And
needs to
then
be
I
done.
do the-
Yeah.
I do the parent first and the child second, just to make sure.
Sorry. And then directory.
Just to back up a little bit, the WP and Q scripts is what's called a hook. It's a command inside WordPress core that's going to fire at certain times when WordPress is loading or when WordPress is doing things. There are thousands of hooks throughout the core. So when you want to get WordPress to do something that it normally doesn't do. Oh, that's fun. One of the best ways, or one of the easiest ways to do that, is to add an action to a hook. You say, as long as you're doing this, what Aaron said a little while ago, as long as you're doing this, add this to it. Do this as well. And that's a large part of what's gonna be in your functions file.
So what I've done right here, this is enqueuing CSS correctly, which I know you can take this exact same code right here. In fact, let's do it.
Right.
We can take this code and right here, exact same thing, okay? So we're loading some CSS, okay? But that's not, and I guarantee you, well, I would think everybody in here has done this. I've done it. I've done it incorrectly because the entry level is really low in theming. You know, it'll still work. It's just not best practice. So if we do it correctly, it'll run just slightly better, maybe faster. But do you guys understand what just happened by putting that in there? Can anyone explain what's happening instead of? Can anybody explain it? No. Okay. Let me explain it because I want you guys to get this. So WordPress runs a list of scripts and it checks. It says, hey, at this point on init, do this. At this point, do this. Once we load the theme, let's look at functions.php and let's see if we're telling WordPress to do something. And we're telling it, hey, add this action to enqueue this using this function. And it's loading in the CSS file, okay? Does that make it any clearer? Kinda? Okay. We'll just continue to build, but you guys understand that now we're calling in a CSS file, okay? And I'm gonna go grab my CSS files.
And you're saying if you don't do that, it could call the same CSS file multiple times.
It could.
By queuing it, you're basically having it
Right.
called once.
Correct. Yeah.
You're letting WordPress do the job of figuring out
How to order it.
two different plugins or whatever calling the same script. Let's just load it one time.
Which, yeah, and CSS isn't gonna break. You could load CSS 85 times if you wanted to. It is much more important with JavaScript. Because I have a plugin that calls in jQuery correctly, and someone contacted me and said, hey, your plugin's broken. And so it's a little plugin that takes tweets and fades them in and out using jQuery. So, and they said, it's broken, it's not rotating, it's not doing the fade in, fade out. And I knew exactly what the problem was. I just looked at the source of their page and it had 2 versions of jQuery loading because another plugin wasn't doing it correctly. So it broke my JavaScript and all the other JavaScript on the site that was using jQuery. And that's jQuery is probably the most common library that's used. So.
Also, if you're doing child themes, if you're creating child themes, you want to make sure that the parent CSS loads before the child, so you can override it. So that's what he's talking about. You don't have to enqueue style.css, but if you're using a child theme, you probably want to make sure it goes in the right order.
Instead of using the import.
Yes, that's out. Enqueuing is in, import is out. It'll still work, it's just not a best practice.
That's the fonts too, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, goodness,
If you're using
yes.
exterior fonts, yes, those should also go in your.
Yeah, I see a lot of people take Google fonts
Yeah.
and just slap it in the header, and
Yeah.
it gets the job done, but then you're going to run into the same problem. A lot of plugins are starting to use
Right.
Google fonts for, making those, selecting different fonts. I just typed something incorrectly, I think. Anyway, lost my train of thought. Anyway, yeah, make sure if you're using Google Fonts to enqueue them. And I did a little script or a blog post somewhere showing how to do it. And if you guys want that, I can hunt that down somewhere. I don't know where that t.css came from. Okay, so what I've done right here, just so you guys understand what I'm trying to do. Are you guys familiar with normalize? So what normalize.css does, and this is why one reason I use it, you have Chrome, Foundation, IE, or Edge, or what I call Internet Edge, because it's the same browser. That's a geek joke right there. Safari, all of those things, they do things slightly differently.
Yeah.
So if you're doing an H2 tag, an H2 tag by default on Chrome might be different than Firefox and vice versa. And so what normalize does, it's a CSS file that I'm enqueuing now that is real.
It essentially
I
levels
totally
the
did that
playing
wrong.
field, so that you're starting from the same base on all the browsers, essentially.
Sorry guys, I'm gonna.
It saves you some time in trying to make up the differences between Chrome and Firefox and Opera later on.
Where,
Okay, there we go.
where can you get that?
Google it.
Okay.
It's a standard file. It's been around for a long time, and I'm
Yeah,
as far as
I
I know
can.
it's been updated.
Yeah, so normalize.
Is it on GitHub? I don't know. Yeah, there you go.
MECOLAS.github.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I might be using an older version, but
It just saves some headaches when you get to tweaking for different browsers.
and next thing I'm gonna grab is a thing called Foundation. I'm gonna let you talk about Foundation and Bootstrap and
Okay,
what
well,
they
I
are.
don't use Foundation. But essentially it's a CSS library that's already pre-built that has a lot of a lot of CSS already built that you can customize, you can change, you can make it your own, but you don't have to start from scratch. You don't want to have to style every single thing in your CSS. And for the most part, you don't want to use the defaults. Foundation is a very popular one. Bootstrap is another very popular one. Essentially, it's just a whole bunch of CSS that, I don't know, what I did was I downloaded Bootstrap and I read through all of it and I changed what I wanted to change and I deleted what I didn't need and I added what I want. But it was a good place to start. It's much easier than trying to build it yourself. It handles pretty much all the classes that are common in WordPress. All of them as far as I know. And Foundation also does, Bootstrap does it a little bit different. It also has responsive features built into it, so you can do responsive things very easily just by using their classes. So div widths and things will change based on screen size. It makes responsive pretty easy. What else?
So
Got all your buttons predefined. You can just go in and change the colors or shapes or sizes or whatever you want.
So, if you guys want to, you can go ahead and just, if you guys like that normalize file and whatnot, you can grab it on my GitHub that I keep referencing here. I wasn't planning on necessarily doing that, but if you guys want to catch up and download what we're building, this is fun. I don't know what the URL is, so is it .com or .org? I'll find it in a minute. So what I've done now, I've taken, let's go back to functions. I've downloaded the Foundation minimum CSS and I've downloaded normalize, okay?
Minimize
I'm sorry, huh?
that. Minimized.
Minimized, yeah. And so we've got normalize being enqueued, so we need to enqueue foundation. This could be called anything. It's a label basically, and then
And
we
it has to be unique in your WordPress site.
yes.
The handle, that's what WordPress refers to it as. It's like its ID. It has to be unique. So I generally name them something with a prefix just to make sure that some plugin isn't using the same handle that I am.
Good call. So I just prefix that with theme from scratch dash, and so we're enqueuing normalize and foundation. So now we go back to our theme. You won't see any difference, but you should see.
The font changed.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, because of normalize. Okay, so we have both of those things being enqueued now. So, makes sense? And why do we do this, Aaron? Well, because it allows us to use things like this. So this documentation for foundation is really good, and like Diana said, Bootstrap is just, I would say, almost as good. We probably could battle which one's better and all that.
It's what you're
Nonetheless,
used to.
this just allows us to make columns, and if you guys aren't using some kind of framework like this, I feel like you're probably wasting or burning a lot of time trying to make things line up correctly on header and footer and things like that. But it's pretty simple to start using. So we go to header.
Before we move off of that, let me also say that when you're queuing stuff, when you're using a CSS library like Foundation or like Bootstrap, you can do one of two things. You can take theirs and just leave it sit there, and you can add another custom CSS for your site after that, or you can customize the CSS that you've downloaded. Both of those are meant to be, they're not meant to be static, they're meant for you to take them and mold them into what you want them to be. So there's nothing at all wrong with changing Bootstrap or changing Foundation. But if you want to leave it the way it is, you can add a third style sheet, and that's your custom CSS. And would you show them where that would go?
I wasn't listening. What did you say?
Go back to your function style.
Yeah.
And let's say you wanted to just leave Foundation the way it is, and you want to add your own custom style sheet
Okay.
after Foundation. Well, actually, that would automatically do it, wouldn't it? Never mind.
What?
It would load your style.css.
It
You
would
only
load-
have to
yeah.
do that if you want another custom one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I wouldn't
Never mind.
necessarily do, but
Well,
every once in a while.
in that case, which one is going to load? Will your style.css load last?
I think so.
Because that would be a reason to
It isn't being
enqueue
loaded.
it.
We do need to enqueue it.
I have a question.
Yep.
Yes.
When you're doing Bootstrap or Foundation, do you go through and click the things that you need, or do you usually
I do.
download everything?
I do. Because
It's too
hardly
big.
ever would you use all of the things. I don't use modal boxes. I don't use animations usually. I'm sure Foundation is the same way. On Get Bootstrap, there's a place where you can customize before you download it, and you just uncheck or check the functions that you want, and so you don't have to download the whole library.
Yeah, and I think what I have here is pretty stripped down, because I think I only use it for buttons and for the grid. So
Yeah.
What would be
Alright.
the best framework right now?
best framework?
Yeah, because
The one you're gonna build.
I'm learning this. I'm trying to build, but if I had to start with a framework,
That's where we would fight that out. I'll tell you later that
Okay.
foundation is better. Preference, Bootstrap made me mad because going from version 2 to version 3, they renamed all the classes, which is kind of annoying. They went from, correct me if I'm wrong, like SM-12 for small 12 to small-12 or something like that.
Tall dash, small dash 12.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it
It's
just,
what you're used to. They both do essentially the same thing. There may be minor differences, I don't even know what those are, but they do the same thing. It's what you get used to. I mean, the purpose of using the same framework over and over again is that you don't have to think about it. You don't have to go
Right.
to there to figure out how to do your small column or how to call your button that you want. You know it because you do it all the time. And quite honestly, that's the biggest thing for me in having my own starter theme, is I don't have to look stuff up. I know where it is. I know what it is. I know what I have, what I don't have. So it just saves me a lot of time. And, you know, in fairness, people like Mickey use the same frameworks and the same themes over and over again. Same thing. He knows where stuff is. He knows, you know, what it has and what it doesn't have, and that's important if you do a lot of development.
So, in a lot of my courses that I, go through, I hear the Genesis framework a lot. So it's the same concept, it's just what you're used to doing, and you just ride with that, and you can ride with that and just get creative, and every site will be different.
Absolutely.
But the frameworks is the same, so you know, it's almost like your car, you know where this is at, you know what that is at, and you keep it efficient as possible.
The difference for me is that when I build a site, I don't give my clients options. They don't have options. I know what they want, and I'm going to hard code the colors, and I'm going to hard code the this and that and other things. So there's no reason for me to have options in my themes. When you have options, that means every time WordPress renders, it has to go out to the database and see what you chose as an option. Do you want to display headers on this page? Do you want this color to be black or white? And that slows down the site. I don't need that because I'm putting all that stuff in. You see what I mean? It's
streamlining.
Yeah.
And keeping it as simplistic as possible for speed.
Right.
Okay.
Now, if you're publishing themes, that's not practical. You have to give people options. But I don't publish themes. I just create them for a specific client.
Yeah, if we were to publish this theme, there's a whole lot of things that I would do differently. I reviewed it. I was on the committee to to do theme reviews for one theme, and then I'm like, wow, that's a whole lot of stuff. Because to be on the WordPress.org repository, it has to be ready for multilingual. It has to have every little aspect of it. It has to be translatable, which is great. I don't release my themes. I do it, for a specific client. So I'm a little more narrowed focus. So
that's why people get frustrated when things don't work how they function in the demo, because it's just so much to it that it just possibly couldn't.
Yeah, and there's also a gazillion operating environments and plugins and things that conflict, and there's so many edge cases that you can't account for all of them.
Okay.
So you guys both start with your own starter theme like this. Have you benchmarked them? Like, what are they? I mean, how's the performance on it? It's got to be pretty good. I mean, because you're not loading a bunch of fluff.
it's a good question.
I've never done a benchmark.
Me neither. So ours started off with Micah Wood's framework, and we kind of forked that and started working on it. So I can almost guarantee you it's really good as far as speed. And I've never benchmarked it. I know that and I know this is a totally different factor, but most of the sites that we build, they're on WP Engine and they load faster than a second. So I don't I don't think it's a PHP. I mean, I would assume it's fast. So I've never benchmarked it. If you can give me a benchmarking tool, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So, because I'd like to do that. We're gonna run out of time in just 1 minute. Let me do one thing. Get back into the foundation. Let me show you why I like foundation. And I know Genesis has these type of columns and whatnot also. What I've done here, small 12, medium 4, which means, and it goes from small to large. So what it's saying is, actually, let me remove this. This means these 12 columns, because it's a 12-column grid, okay? No matter what, suck up all 12 columns, okay? And this one says, hey, on a tablet and up, use these 8, but when you get really small to a phone, make it 12. So I know that makes probably no sense until you see it, okay?
Do you understand what he's talking about?
Oh, and it's so low.
It's the responsive part of it, right?
That's
It's
the
responsive.
responsive part.
Okay.
So I go.
And you can set the page breaks where
you
the
want-
pixels where that breaks.
Okay.
But
Medium
that's what
6,
makes it
medium-
responsive, yes.
So you can really drill down for phone and then tablet and then desktop exactly how you want it, exactly how you want it.
Right.
Resolution is so low I can't demo it. Everything
It's
is
okay.
12.
Yeah.
That's really annoying. But it comes in real handy because when you're dealing with a large screen, you can tell it only use 3 or 4, and it comes in real handy for things like I think.
Hey, get this stuff in Dropbox.
I'm sorry.
Get this.
Get stuff in your own.
Your reminder keeps popping up.
Oh, gotcha. See, that's full 12. I can't demo it. But yeah, that's how you get your responsiveness. So on a phone, actually, it's really about, I think, like at 800 or so, everything is 12 columns. It's all in Foundation's documentation.
Okay.
But let me do one more thing in header, and then we will wrap up and we'll continue building this next month. One thing that we skipped that was really important, you guys looked, our body class only says body right here. WordPress is really dependent on something here. We put some PHP in here. It's a function.
It's
That
WordPress magic.
Now that we have that little snippet in there, we're going to refresh and look at the code. It says this is the home page. It's also the blog because that's set. I'm logged in. Yes, the admin bar is there. Okay, so we changed. If we were to change pages, to a specific page, it would have the page ID as a class, that it's a page, etc., etc. And I've seen themes that don't have that type of code in there, and it becomes really important when you're trying to make a page look different than a post, because then you can just say via CSS dot page background pink if you want the pages to have a pink background and the posts not have a pink background. Nikki Pink, sorry.
It becomes very, very critical with CSS.
Right. So,
any questions?
yeah.
Did we completely lose everyone today?
Can you go back to your PHP Storm?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I think you guys can agree or disagree, but what was helping me, I don't really roll my own themes, but I like to really understand it, so when I am working with premium themes, then I can really get in there. So what I've done before, and I just did it today, is download an underscores, basic theme, and just kind of poke around and see the stuff. Obviously there's more in there than what you guys are showing, but at least you can see like a basic structure of
I think it's super important to do that. That's how I've always learned is, okay, what's causing this, and go and look and, you know, hack it out, and then be like, oh, that's a nice feature. I'm going to steal that and put it in my framework. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that per se. You know, but
it's all GPL license.
yeah. So
it's important to know as much as you can about things before you start modifying things.
right.
Because learning what things do tells you what you can't touch and what you can. And that's
Or
kind of
if you're,
important.
you can almost touch everything, just if you're going to touch it correctly, so it doesn't break, break something else.
Well,
So-
now we're getting into a different
So
subject
much
to talk
potential
about.
with that comment.
So, next, I guess I'll give you, if you guys want to download my ugly theme on GitHub, Aaron Ryman. So GitHub/Aaron Ryman, and you can.
Aaron, will you send me a link to that?
Yes, I will do that. So,
And you should play around with this before next month.
yeah.
Do some stuff, come up with some questions. Yes, Kathy?
Well, that kind of reminds me to ask you, I know you're starting a series of the meetups, but isn't this a lot like the beginning developer
Very,
session at WordCamp?
very similar. Yes.
it is.
That's
Very
It-
astute of you.
your segue to tell people.
Yeah. So WordCamp 2016. It took me a second.
We're in Atlanta 2016.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's coming up. It's going to be the 18th, 19th, and 20th, right? Nod? Okay.
Of March.
Of March. The beginner's day is Friday, and we're going to have 3 different tracks. There's going to be a beginners, a Mickey.
It's like beginners for people new to WordPress, beginning designers for people that want to understand CSS and hex codes and start digging into just the high level stuff and that, and beginner developers for people that sort of know how to code in other things but don't understand how WordPress puts everything together.
Right.
Yeah.
And so since this is related, the dev stuff, you're going to learn how to do this, and it's going to be I think it's going to be a lot faster. You're going to need MAMP, you're going to need Git installed. We're going to have a few people that work for me there to help people get running. It's going to be like this, but we're going to have Git set up because Mike has gone through and done each commit. So if you get behind, you'll be able to pull this commit down and have the theme, you know, where everyone else is, if that makes sense. Hopefully it'll all make sense. It's going to be, how many hours are we going to have that day? Is it about a 6-hour day?
Yeah, something like 6, yeah.
Okay, so I think Micah's course that he's put together is about 3 hours long. So you'll have this in about 3 hours, and I highly recommend if you guys are interested in what we're doing here, you'll want to be there for that. So
If you're not signed up, if you have not signed up in the last few months to get on the waiting list or to get on the mailing list, atlanta.wordcamp.org/2016, get on the mailing list. Tickets are going on sale in a couple of weeks.
And they sell out like a
And they will
concert
sell
crazy
out
quickly.
very quickly. And you want to be there, believe me. Next Thursday, 6:30 p.m. at the East Government Center, Kathy Druin's meetup. And the topic is?
It's introduction to SSL,
Okay.
beginner level stuff. And
Beginner
wherever it
level,
will take us from there.
but if you have other questions, bring those as well. 2 weeks back in this room.
Well,
This
no,
Mickey's
it's a
meetup.
small room though.
Oh, in the other room?
This room's booked, and Allie will be leading a panel of designers talking about design and stuff.
Okay.
And then in 3 weeks at the East Cobb Library, because this is totally booked out, we'll have our first business-based one. So we'll have Aaron and Jenny Munn and Chris Scholl on a little panel to talk about the business of WordPress and how they built to where they are and tools they use and how to use WordPress, how to make money if this is what your business is and stuff. So
Very good. Any other questions?
Real quick, I'm brand spanking new to this, and I was just wanting to quickly get a learning hierarchy. If you had to tell someone who's really tenacious about learning, like the synopsis you gave about how you want to put together the course of 2016, I'm sorry.
WordCamp.
Yeah, WordCamp. How would I do that? Is that basically the hierarchy that I would go through if I'm trying to learn it myself, as far as being tenacious, wanting to get the courses and learning what I need to learn to get to that level, or?
What do you want to do with it? What's your goal?
Well, for me, my goal is to be able to build WordPress sites, build websites fluidly. I've done everything else, SEO, all the affiliate marketing, I've learned all of that. Last thing is, my Achilles heel is building the website. So I'm really trying to drill down and get to the point where I can.
Have you done programming before?
No, I haven't. And I want to learn programming too. I want to learn it all. So
Okay.
Lynda.com?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I can get every course that's out there, but I was just looking for a kickstart. Where should I start?
I was gonna say, I mean, I would start learning some PHP on Lynda.com.
Okay.
And
Or Codecademy?
yeah, I'm a fan of Lynda.com, but that's just me. They also have WordPress theming things too. They're a little outdated, but it shouldn't have changed enough to where it's going to throw you off.
Okay.
I think that's definitely worth. It's $25, I think, for 1 month. I mean, watch them all. You'll spend 2 weekends on it, and you'll be
Okay.
Treehouse is actually, I think Treehouse is a little bit.
really okay.
Yeah. So basically, start with CSS.
PHP is that.
PHP.
PHP. Okay.
PHP.
They go so hand in hand that you need the kind of like the framework built through PHP, and then you use CSS to make it look the way you want it to look.
Okay.
So you need them both.
All right.
So
And
Thank
you
you.
have to be at WordCamp.
And you should have,
Yeah.
it's $40. It includes parking, breakfast, lunch, snacks. It's 2 days.
Not
It's-
I'm sold.
It's the best. I'll be there, so you should come.
yeah.
Look at WordPress.tv. Like all the sessions from every WordCamp everywhere are up there. So you can find, there's some winners and some losers, it's hard to kind of tell,
Right.
but
They also
you can
have-
find ones that sound like what you want to learn, and it's the very same sessions you'll catch at WordCamp.
But
My
WordPress
point is
has
good
a
to
hack
do
in
it
its
in
market.
person.
You can go
There
talk
are
to someone and
also
say,
a
okay,
lot
I'm
of-
stuck here, and they'll sit down and help you.
Beg pardon?
There are also a lot of good videos on YouTube. If you search for WordPress 101, a lot of good beginner advice. A lot of websites. There's WP Beginner, Tuts Plus, that have a lot of tutorials on them. There's so many resources.
I'm trying to just get, like a lot of times you can get overloaded with all of that. So somebody who actually does it gives you that list.
One of your best resources is to come to these
Oh,
meetings
yes.
and
Oh,
ask
yeah.
questions.
Yeah, this is my first one, so I'm like, this is good.
All right, Periscope peeps. Talk to you later.
When I first started out,